Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Januszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
Looking forward to August after this, I think the fourth rainiest month ever on record for Connecticut, not just for July. It's just been unbelievable.
Yeah,
But
the
now it's nice and it's looking good moving ahead.
yeah, the weather all across the world has actually been crazy. Yeah, as you said, Connecticut had its fourth rainiest month ever. We've also had the hottest July on record. And they're looking at old records, but it may have been the hottest month, period, across the world. So, yeah, people are suffering from heat, suffering from storms. There was a monsoon in India. It's just been crazy. And, people are yelling, oh, it's, all about climate change. It's all about bad weather. It's actually a combination of both. But I read a couple of studies, and basically what some very reputable scientists are saying is the way we get out of this and keep this from happening over and over again is we need to plant about 1 million trees per year. So if you're listening to this, if you're out there and you care about climate change, you care about the environment, get out there and plant a tree. If everybody who cares about climate and the environment plants 1 tree a year, we've got this taken care of.
Sounds like a plan.
And you need to start doing that right away. And that's part of what we're talking about today is procrastination. This is something we can't procrastinate anymore on. But let's face it, procrastination affects us all. Everybody at some point has done it.
Oh, absolutely. Basically, it's just so easy to do that. Even the most successful people go through this from time to time. But obviously, if you put some things to work to try and overcome it, it's really important to do that. I mean, one of my favorite couple of things, obviously, one thing that you can do after today is with this new procrastination thing and anything else that you're looking to do, get yourself an accountability partner. And that way, if you're running things by each other, you have somebody to talk to, and including about procrastination. But number two, my favorite book on the subject, which I actually probably listened to, I'm guessing about 8, 10 years ago, is called The 5 Second Rule by Mel Robbins. And basically, what this is all about is it says the moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, or the moment you have an instinct to just stay in bed and this and that, whatever, you just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You count down and just do it. Get into action. So it's very, very simple to do. And if it's something that when you gave me this subject and I procrastinated a week because we didn't meet last week, I said, oh, yeah, I got to get this book out, the 5 Second Habit by Mel Robbins. But it's a great, great book, The 5 Second Rule. So I highly recommend doing that.
Yeah, it's a great book, a great way to look at it. That 5 second rule is very effective. And in something that's kind of related, I've got the 2 minute rule. And the 2 minute rule was popularized by David Allen, who's best known for getting things done. And the 2 minute rule is about encouraging you to tackle any task that takes 2 minutes or less immediately. Don't wait on it, just take care of it. By completing those quick and straightforward tasks that we have all day, you prevent them from piling up and becoming a source of procrastination. So, by embracing the 2 minute rule, you're cultivating a habit of taking swift action. Then that leads to increased momentum. And that's really what procrastination is. It's a lack of momentum. It's, not wanting to move forward. So by taking care of those little things immediately and just clearing the way, that helps you get over some of this procrastination.
Yes, and we've talked. Obviously, this goes hand in hand with time management, which we've
Yeah.
talked about often, and the four quadrants: urgent and important, urgent and unimportant, things like that. And what happens if it's urgent and important, that's the most important thing. Urgent and unimportant, don't do that. And there's other things not important and not urgent, and so on and so forth. And we tend to just look at the list of things and move ourselves into the wrong quadrant. But if you actually have a list of things that you need to do for a major task and simplify them into what you're talking about, 2-minute tasks to get it done, a little bit of organization up front. I like to do it on a spreadsheet. There's other ways to do that too, where you just list the tasks that have to be done and they're right in front of you, is a great way to overcome that instead of just saying, how am I going to get this project done? So organization is a huge, huge part of it.
Absolutely. If you're organized, it becomes so much easier to move forward. You really need to set clear goals and prioritize those important tasks. Procrastination thrives in the absence of clear goals and priorities. So if you start by setting specific, achievable, time bound goals, we've talked about setting SMART goals in the past. When you break those larger tasks into smaller, manageable chunks and make them less daunting and more approachable, it's easier to avoid the procrastination. Then you prioritize those tasks, as you've just said, based on their urgency and importance. Create a to-do list that outlines all of that and puts it in the order that you'll address everything. You've got a system that helps you avoid that procrastination. It keeps you focused, it keeps you moving forward. And part of the big problem with procrastination is the fact that when you don't have a clear goal or you don't break large tasks into smaller things, we tend to get stuck in our own minds. And the task seems more daunting than it is. The results are more intimidating than they should be. And we tend to get into a mindset where we're just trying to avoid getting this done because we're not sure how we're going to do it, or we're not sure what's going to happen. And we tend to imagine things as being much worse than they are, so we put them off. When you get out of your own head and just start moving forward and doing the tasks, things are a lot easier than you thought they'd be.
Yeah, and one of the things that Mel Robbins mentions in the book too, she talks about motivation, and she talks about motivation being a myth. And she says there's a common assumption that in order to take action, you need to feel motivated to do so. The reality is you are not likely to feel motivation to do the things that really need doing. The only way to make progress and dramatically improve your life is to take action, regardless of having a
Yep.
sense of motivation or not. So that's where the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 comes right in. And basically, she talks about if you tend to overthink every move, you're just going to overthink. You're going to overthink and you're going to overthink and just sap your energy and confidence to do that. Overthinking is a big form of procrastination.
That's so true. And we've talked about overthinking before. Overthinking keeps people from achieving goals, from doing things, and it's because it saps your action. And we've referred to it in the past as, and now I'm blanking on the term. Um, but the inaction just stops you. You spend so much time planning and so much time trying to figure out what you do that you don't actually do it. And that in itself is another form of procrastination. Analysis paralysis. That's the phrase I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. And she, Mel Robbins, she talks about using the 5 second rule and basically just acting on yourself. You will find that by using it, you will find that your belief in yourself and control you have over your own life and fate will increase significantly just by doing it, because it turns into momentum in the positive way. The rule is not about making things easy. That's not possible. It is about prompting action and making things happen. And by doing that, you get that momentum going, and you are turning your habit of procrastination into a habit of doing things. And it's a lot simpler than you think, because you just keep thinking again, think. This is hard to do. No, it isn't. Throw that out. One thought. It's not hard. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to do it.
That's it. That countdown gives you the momentum. You start, you get things done. The faster you start, the faster you finish. And let's face it, this is not just a work problem. How many times have you looked at the sink full of dishes and said, "Oh, I'll get to that later"? You notice the living room needs to be clean. "Oh, I'll get to it later." You've got to make a doctor's appointment. "Oh, I'll do it later." None of these things is terribly time consuming. None of them is terribly difficult. But we tend to get into a place where it's like, yeah, it's not something I want to do. I'm not motivated. Well, let's face it, as you just said, how many times are you going to be motivated to wash the dishes? I mean, unless you're out of dishes, you're probably not going to find that a motivating task to do, but it's still got to be done. So the 5-second rule is a great way. It's like, all right, let's just get it done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
And regardless of how much you procrastinate on different things, I am sure that everybody out there has certain things that they do well and they do good and they do automatically that other people hate doing. I mean, you mentioned the
Yep.
dishes and so on and so forth. And basically, I'm a neat freak when it comes to that. We all talk a lot about morning exercises and things like that, having a positive morning theme. And every single morning I get up and do that automatically. But after dinner, I just automatically tackle the dishes and they're done. And it's the same thing in the morning and so on and so forth. And it didn't used to be that way. But what happens when you find out that you get it done? You walk into the kitchen and it always looks clean. That's great. You want to
Yep.
have dinner on time and so on and so forth. Oh, wait a sec. I don't have to do the dishes or all this other kind of stuff. This is just one example. But everybody out there, if you can take out a sheet of paper and write down things that you do by habit that are really productive, that a lot of people don't think that they would like to do, you can see that you're capable of doing anything. And that's all it is just doing it. The rule is it's not the big moves that define our lives. It's just the small ones. Getting started is the most important thing you can do.
Absolutely. And we talked about something when we discussed time management that you just sort of touched on, is that you have a habit trigger. After dinner, you do the dishes. So you finish dinner, that automatically triggers, okay, now I'm going to do the dishes. Creating those habit triggers are so important. And, some things automatically have a trigger. David Allen uses the example of doing laundry. And it's when you open your drawer and you don't have any, and you pull out the last clean item, that's a trigger. Today you're doing laundry.
Or you're going shopping.
Right. But those habit triggers are a great way to help avoid procrastination because they make you do things automatically. You're not thinking about it. You're not getting stuck in your head going, "Oh, I hate doing this." It's just, yeah, dinner's done. You put the dishes in the sink, you wash them. Becomes automatic.
Yep. I mean, several years, I've always been into walking and this and that, whatever. But several years ago, after reading The Miracle Morning, and we discussed that book before, two things that I picked up from that I do very first thing every single morning. I go downstairs and have a big glass of water, and then I do my 10 minutes of exercise automatically every single morning. And it keeps me in good shape. And basically, I've done other things as a result of that too. I like going out and taking walks and so on and so forth. But those two things first thing in the morning, and the morning is a great time to start developing good habits, because once you do a couple of things and have a couple of notches on your belt for the day, first thing in the morning, the rest of the day becomes easier and you're more motivated to do better things. But it's that simple. Just pick a couple of simple things to do. Those two things, grabbing a glass of water, doing exercise, takes me 10 minutes every single morning. But the rest of my day is so much better because of it.
Yeah, and that's important. Once you start doing, it's an old law in physics. A body in motion tends to remain in motion. A body inert tends to stay inert. You, procrastination is inertia, and you need to overcome that. Once you start moving, it is so much easier to keep moving and keep doing things throughout the day. And we also need to make sure we're not being distracted. And one of the things that you need to do is to really have an environment that encourages productivity. I mean, your environment can significantly influence your ability to stay on track and whether or not you feel motivated. If you have a dedicated workspace that's free of distractions, so you don't have all the noise, you don't have all the clutter, you're not scrolling through social media, you've just got the tools you need for whatever that area is for. If it's your desk, it's focused on work. The sink area is basically just focused on cleaning. When you have dedicated areas that are free from distractions, it makes it easier to move forward with those tasks. You're not walking past the television and going, "Oh, what was that? Let me see that." Focus on what needs to be done and make your environment conducive to that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we have talked about, which I just thought I would bring into this, is the meditation side of things, and just quieting our busy minds. Basically, single tasking with your mind. It's very, very important in the workplace to single task also, because when you don't, that's a form of procrastination too. But you talked about the 2 minute rule or the 5 second rule. If you just single task on things and get it done, it's so, so important. But if you focus on that, focus is a huge thing. And that's something that you can train your mind to do by silencing your mind. And there's other ways that you can work on that too. But that's a big part of it.
Yes, and talking about focusing on one task at a time, this is another thing that we've talked about with time management, but it's very good for for avoiding procrastination is something called the Pomodoro technique. And just to remind our listeners about the technique, it's a time management method that involves breaking work into intervals. Now, they usually recommend 25-minute intervals separated by short breaks, but you can make those intervals as long or as short as you need. And you start a timer, you work on a single task until the timer rings, and then take a 5-minute break. After four of those cycles, you take a more extended break of 15 to 30 minutes. And this helps you focus on what you're doing. And you're doing one task at a time. You're not multitasking. You're not jumping from task to tasks. The regular breaks help you prevent burnout for when you're doing more intensive work. But this is a great way. And you'll find, especially with smaller tasks and a lot of household tasks, that 25 minutes may be all you need to complete a task when you're putting your full attention in it. And so instead of procrastinating in something taking hours because you're doing a little of it and then you're taking a phone call, you're doing a little of it and then you're having a conversation, when you just focus, put your head down and push through it, it's done.
Yeah. Having the 25-minute works or whatever you're talking about and putting the breaks in there is so, so important, because what you're doing is you're refreshing yourself, and you have some accomplishments behind you while you're refreshing yourself. You can pat yourself on the back for getting that thing done. Start looking forward to the next thing instead of just going boom, 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 boom like a robot. So that's one that I had forgotten about a bit, and I just wrote that one down as you were talking.
Yeah, it is so important. And yes, you do have to give yourself those breaks. And that's also something that people need to remember is that beating procrastination doesn't happen overnight. So you really do need to be patient and practice self compassion and reward your progress because you need to keep moving forward. Instead of being overly critical of yourself, practice self compassion. Acknowledge that everyone faces challenges and occasional procrastination is natural. But when you achieve significant milestones or when you complete challenging tasks, which we all come across, give yourself a reward, a small treat or an indulgence. Do an activity that you really enjoy. Celebrate your progress, even if it's small progress, because every celebration reinforces that positive behavior. And that motivates you to stay committed to overcoming the procrastination and getting tasks done. So it's not just about, oh, I've got to force myself to get things done. I've got to force myself to move forward. No, be understanding with yourself and reward yourself. You know, it can be a little reward. It can be a piece of chocolate. It could be a big reward. Take yourself out for a night on the town. Whatever it is that motivates you. But use these to reward yourself for a job well done and for getting everything that you need to do finished.
Yeah, one of the other things that you can do is mind games. Think of you're going to be going on vacation tomorrow. If you're going on vacation tomorrow, what are you going to be doing today? You're going to be getting all the stuff that you need to get done in a hurry. If you can get yourself into the mindset that something is coming up and working on things that way with a little bit more sense of urgency, as opposed to saying, okay, I got another day, I got another day, I got another day. That's what the procrastination is all about. That's one of the things that you can play with yourself. And again, one of the best ways to do this is if you are going on vacation next week, you are going to write a list of everything you got to get done before you're doing that. So if you're not in the habit of writing down a list of what you need to do now in your daily life, start doing that right now, just because that's what we told you should be doing with that. If you can start getting into that mindset where that's right in front of you, that's going to help you out a whole lot. If you have like a forced sense of urgency, that's there. Of course, it really is important as far as part of your rewards thing is to always have something to look forward to and have that next either day off or long weekend and so on and so forth. And we've talked about this a lot. Just plan for the leisure, for the time out for several days or whatever you need to do. And obviously, it's gives you something to look forward to, which automatically will make your mindset a whole lot more positive and less likely to procrastinate on things.
Yes, and we've talked about this in the past as well, where the desk gets cleaned before you go on vacation. You've wrapped up all of your work, but why wait for the vacation? If you treat every weekend as a vacation, so that Friday, you've got your desk cleaned up, you've got everything wrapped up on Friday afternoon, so that you can take the weekend off. And you can do this not just with work, but with things around the house. So many of us think, well, I'll take care of all the housework over the weekend. But if you just spend 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the day straightening things up, take care of the dishes, take care of what needs to be done, you can actually clear your weekend for actual leisure activities, for having fun, for relaxing. And that's a big problem. We've recently talked about burnout. And when you're working 7 days, whether it's 5 days at a job and then 2 days taking care of all the things you didn't do during the week at home, one, that's a form of procrastination because you're putting things off for the weekend, but you're also creating the conditions for burnout because you're not giving yourself time to rest and relax. So pretend you only have a 5-day week. You don't have the weekend to do the work. And then when you get to that weekend, you've got a 2-day vacation.
Yep, it's time to celebrate.
Yes. And it really is important. Again, procrastination It's not just keeping us from getting things done. The longer you procrastinate with something, the more stress it becomes. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, how damaging stress is. And when you eliminate the procrastination, you're eliminating a lot of that stress because one, it's not sitting around and you're dreading doing it and you keep putting it off and dreading it more and putting it off and dreading it more. But also, once you're finished, you've taken it off your plate. So whether it was something you enjoyed doing or not, it's done. It's taken care of and you don't have to worry about it. And as I said just a few minutes ago, if you're using a reward system, you know, you don't want to procrastinate because the longer you procrastinate, the longer you have to wait for that reward. So get the things done, give yourself the reward, and get productive enough so that you're not procrastinating and you've got the weekend to have some fun.
Yep, and make a list of those accomplishments as you tick them off. Again, if you have them written down and you have them all checked off, obviously that's something you can look at anytime, especially if you're in a rut, because you're going to have your ups and downs and so on and so forth. But you know that you are perfectly capable of it. And by checking those things off, you have the proof.
Absolutely. And there have been studies that have shown that checking things off a to do list actually boosts your mood and boosts momentum because you feel good about accomplishing things, even if they're just small tasks. So if you've got that task list, check things off or cross things off as you complete them and give yourself that satisfaction that the job is done.
Yeah. Checking things off is a quickest form of celebration.
Absolutely. All right, we are coming up on the end of our time here. So, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Basically, reversing the momentum. Mel Robbins had a few tips about handling procrastination. She said if you find yourself in a habitual spiral of procrastination, you need to replace the habit with a new one. Instead of avoiding the work, just trying to sit down and focus on getting it done. And if you do feel like you're losing focus, stop and do that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or do your 2-minute drill that you were talking about. But the most important thing is just taking control of your life then. Realizing that we are all human and we are all going to have our ups and downs. But just by getting into a routine of number one, organizing things by writing things down, checking them off by single tasking and just doing it that way, treating yourself with compassion, because the bottom line is we are human, we're going to have our ups and downs, and then celebrating when you're done and making the list as you're talking about, 5-day week, 2-day weekend. And if you can get yourself just into certain habits, I know I ran off a lot of things there, but the bottom line is if you can just pick things up and just start doing them in those small time increments, things are going to improve for you big time. And if you have a list of check marks, go out and celebrate them.
That's it. And the other thing I think that's important for our listeners to remember is think how much time you're wasting by procrastinating. When you just get the tasks done, if you push through them, they're done, they're taken care of, and you've got more time for yourself. And that's what a lot of this is about. Reduce your stress, get more time to enjoy things. Focus on getting everything done Monday to Friday and give yourself Saturday and Sunday off. That helps you tremendously. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.